Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Guns Explained. I'm your host, Cameron Porter. We've got a fantastic episode for you today, coming here from Farmington, Utah, over by Farmington Canyon, and it is hot. But this episode we've got for you is going to be very special. We're talking about a neat trick on how to make your firearms inert. To help us with this episode, we've got Officer Brett Paulsen from the Weber State Campus Police joining us. You may recognize him from our Range Day episode. He's joining us again, and it's going to be awesome. So thanks for being here, Brett.
Hey, not a problem. I enjoy it.
So let me first ask you, what does it mean to make a firearm inert? What does that mean?
So to make your firearm inert, it means to make it so even if you chamber a round into your firearm, you can pull the trigger and nothing's going to happen. You're pretty much rendering the gun inoperable.
Okay, so that specifically is the term for you can even put a round in the chamber and pull the trigger and nothing's going to happen.
Correct.
Wow, okay, so how do you make a, are there different ways to make the firearm inert?
I would imagine so. The way I'm most accustomed to is taking the firing pin out. It leaves the rest of the gun completely assembled and just makes it so there's nothing going to hit the back of the round to make it fire.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You pull out the firing pin. So why would someone want to make their firearm inert?
There's a couple different reasons. Like Cameron was saying, I'm part of the campus police. We do allow concealed carry up on campus, but if you have to bring your firearm onto campus for a demonstration or whatnot, we require you make the firearm inoperable, so we take the firing pin out. It leaves the rest of the gun, as you can see it as such, but makes it so you can't fire the weapon. Another reason is for safety. If you want to have your firearm at home, if it sits in the gun cabinet, and just want an extra step to make sure it doesn't go off for whatever reason, whoever gets to it, you can also take your firing pin out at that point.
That makes sense. I'd also think maybe for traveling, it could be smart to have that out. I know it's not a requirement, but it could be smart to...
For sure.
To do that, make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through this. Say
All
I
right.
want to, so we've got right here, we've got my personal AR-15. It's a Smith & Wesson M&P 15. And then we've got here a Glock...
A 19.
A 19.
Yep, Glock
Okay,
19.
Glock 19. And you're going to show us how to remove the firing pins on these, right?
Yeah, I can show you how to do it on these
Let's do
particular
it.
models. All right, so we'll start with the handgun here. First thing you do whenever dealing with any kind of firearm, you make sure that it is safe to operate. You don't have any magazines or rounds in the chamber. And then you can, at this point, dismantle your firearm, because what you're going to want it to get down into is the firing mechanism.
Okay, so is removing the slide is what you just did, right?
Yeah, so I removed the top of the slide here, and I'm removing the spring as well as the barrel.
Okay.
Each firearm is going to be slightly different on how you take it down. So this is just how you would take this kind of model down. I don't know how close you can get up into here, but this piece right here is going to be the top of the firing pin, and it's going to shoot out right down here. So what you would end up doing...
Looks like there's a little button that you push there.
So it's a little bit in depth on how to get this down, but what you're essentially going to be doing is taking the back plate off this particular model.
Oh.
And you slide this back piece out, just like that. So on this firearm, this whole thing is the firing mechanism. This little pin at the very tip is actually what comes out and strikes the back of your round, causing the whole gun to work. So now without that piece in, and if I were to put this back plate on, put everything back together, this firearm would not fire. It wouldn't work because there's nothing to hit the back of the round. So in a sense, that would be completely take down, and you could take this, or put this all back together, and your firearm would be completely inert, and you just put that off to the side in a baggie to save somewhere else.
Okay.
Depending on what you wanted to do. For travel-wise, you can keep it in the case, but you just have to remember, you want to make sure you have this around. Otherwise, you have a $400 paperweight because the gun won't work at that point.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. Well, that seems fairly simple. That seems fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of the firearms, first you look at how it was all put together. You get familiar with your style of firearm, and I mean, everything's really simple. They're made for function, not for much else.
Sure.
I mean, put it right back together.
And that pops right back on.
And there you go.
Okay. So that's how you do it in a handgun. So how about an AR?
So with the AR, it's a little bit simpler.
Oh, really?
If you would imagine that, right? So for the AR, you first pop out the little pins on the sides. Oh,
okay.
You should probably take out your flag there. All right, so making sure it's clear.
Yep.
There. Take out your pins. Drop off the bottom. Now you have the upper receiver. At this point, you pull the charging handle back. Take out the bolt carrier group here.
Okay.
You now take your tool again and you pull a little pin right off to the side here.
Okay. So you need like a nail or a needle or something.
Yep,
that can
just
fit
something
in
small.
there.
This is just a small screwdriver from like a jeweler's kit.
Okay.
And then right in here is the firing pin
Shakes
for
out
the
just
AR.
like that. Okay.
It looks exactly like a nail.
Like a duplex nail.
Yeah. So this is actually the end right over on this side that's going to go forward and hit the back of your round. At which point you could put this pin back in, put this back up into the charging handle, and it put the whole firearm back together minus the firing pin. Keep that off to the side, put it in a baggie, make sure you remember where it's at. Otherwise you, once again, have a very expensive paperweight.
Okay.
But it would fit all back together. It would look nice still, and you can store it in the safe and it would still be safe.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's a neat trick, and it could be, there's not a ton of situations where you would want to make your firearm inert, but I think there are enough that it's a good thing for firearm owners to know how to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And then also on the cleaning aspect, we'll pull this one back out.
Oh, sure.
I've kind of rubbed it with my fingers a little bit because it was kind of greasy. It was relatively clean, but every once in a while you're going to want to get into this, make sure it's clean. It is a very important part of the firearm. Without it, you're not going to work. If it gets all gummed up, the firing pin only really travels a short distance, so if it gets stuck, it's not going to have the force, that it needs to hit the back of the primer and go off, and you'll have a few more misfires for your gun as you go. So make sure that this is clean. It's a good thing to know how to get into for sure.
Well, thank you. Okay, well, if you have any questions on this topic, go ahead and throw them in the comments, and we will either address them ourselves or we'll have Officer Paulsen do it for us, because he's going to be probably a better source for information than our team. So thanks for joining us. We wanted to do a special shout out to our subscribers on Patreon. Thank you so much for making Guns Explained continue to be possible. And if you want to help us make more episodes of the show, go ahead and check us out. It's patreon.com/gunsexplained. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week. That episode rocked. If you want to rock too, like our Facebook page and subscribe on Patreon to help support more episodes. Have a good day.